There has been an outpouring of tributes honoring Congressman John Lewis since his death Friday. CBS News anchor and national correspondent Michelle Miller is joining us from Atlanta this morning. Michelle, I'm so glad to have you with us. I know that you've known Lewis for much of your life. What are your memories of him and your reflections?
I knew Congressman Lewis through my father and his dear friends as a child. I remember the social gatherings, the dinner parties. He was a lover of life. He loved laughter. He loved his friends and family. But most of all, he loved his wife, Lillian, who was such an amazing woman from Los Angeles, an educator, a former Peace Corps volunteer in Africa. And so when she died in 2012, this woman who had brought so many of these wonderful occasions into the home, they were best friends with Hank Aaron and Andrew Young and their wives. When she died, so many folks were worried about him. Would he be able to continue in the same vein because she was such a support? Perhaps a blessing in her dying on New Year's Eve 2012 was that it was on the eve of the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. So he had to pick up and move forward in order to commemorate that historic occasion. And I recall being there just off stage as he gave this eloquent speech and connected the dots between then and now and expressed this grand gesture to the next generation. It was a moment where he did rise to that occasion.
I know that you have been out there covering the most recent protests that our country has been experiencing, and I'm wondering what you think Congressman Lewis did to impact and to shape that next generation of activists.
You know, I think it all dates back to the fact that in his desperation to seek change at the age of 17, Martin Luther King Jr., after receiving a letter from him, reached back and said, well, come join me. It was an empowering experience for him to be asked to join something that he felt he was, one, up to task to, but two, that he had been invited into. And so always, he was the man who was seeking to hand the baton to the next generation by placing his hand out and reaching out to them to come on board. And it was beyond the scope of finding equality and justice for African Americans. It was on gun control. It was in the immigrant community, the Native American community. It was the gay rights community. So much of Atlanta right now is celebrating the fact that he was such a part of the Black Jewish coalition here and establishing it and making sure that those ties were strong. So, you know, it stems from the fact that he was included at a young age, and passing that baton is so incredible, was an incredible legacy for him.
Love that. Michelle Miller, thank you for sharing with us.